You're with Pastorpedia. We're with a tough area today in some ways. Tough area for pastors, not only in certain parts of the country. Liberty. Give me liberty or give me, and liberty is always stuff that I decide it is. We want to talk about an important issue in church life, liberty areas. I'm with Jeff Bogue from Akron, Ohio. Jim Brown from, where are you from?
Land of Goshen.
Land of Goshen.
Yeah. Our town's in the Bible, Jeff's isn't.
Yeah, okay. But his means summit. And all right, liberty. I know you're all thinking of certain things. When I grew up, and all of us grew up with certain amounts that are bigger than they are today, don't smoke or chew or date the girls that do. But it's a higher, bigger area than that. Liberty. Why are there's two and more, but main chapters in the Bible about liberty. Why does God care about this area, you guys? Jim?
Well, I think that the mere fact that he gives greater attention to it or takes time to explain it, in my mind, when Scripture refers to something in length or repetitively refers to it, then we need to read it carefully and see what Jesus said. Partially because it could be a tension point. And so we have to be careful the way we interpret it. So when it comes to liberties, we have to make sure we have a biblical response. We're taking in cultural relevance without crushing and killing people and giving people the freedom on both sides to speak about the issue without disbanding or dividing the two groups.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, when you think about where those passages are, most of them are positioned in such a way that you're talking about Jewish and Gentile believers morphing together into this new thing called the church. And so it's a lot of what Jim just said. It's these cultures coming together, and Paul and others looking and saying, listen, let's look at their passion for Christ. Let's look at their dedication to Jesus. Let's not look just on behaviors. And when you look at someone and say, well, you don't love Jesus because of X, or you don't love Jesus because of Y, that judgmental push back and forth. You're not loving each other. You're not uniting around the proclamation of the gospel of Christ. You're fighting off of your soapboxes. So you think about the early church, what a crazy issue this was with the clashing of those cultures coming together. And that's why God addresses it. And it's the same types of things we would struggle with today.
The other thing, too, Newt, I would say, and I would agree with Jeff said, and I know I would agree with you, too.
Thank you. And I would agree with you, Jim.
On most things.
I agree also that you agree, that Newt agrees.
On most things. Probably not on liberties, though. It's to look at a person's heart. Often I'll have people ask me why this group's doing this, or this family's doing that, or that family's doing this. And they'll come to me, and I'll also come back and say, why don't you go to the person, sit down with the person and ask them why they choose to do this or not do this. So the heart, and to me, the heart of the issue of the person is often really lets someone see why they do or don't do. And often it dismantles the judgment that comes out, prejudgment of that person. After they've heard them, they see, wow, they are biblical. Wow, they do love Jesus. They have thought through this. And sometimes even I've seen people say, you know what, I'll choose not to do that when I'm with you. So go and talk to the person, too.
A real understanding of it takes some maturity. And I do think God has those chapters there because we needed them. Yeah, thank you, Newt. But also because we love to fight about stuff. We love to believe that what we believe on certain issues is the only way instead of one way. And, the old ways, and still true in some churches. I was taught when I was a kid that if I were in a movie when Jesus came, I wouldn't go along home with him. Mm-hmm. My Sunday school teacher told me that. Hello.
Wow.
What kind of movies were you going to?
King Kong. I came out of King Kong with my dad, thinking if Jesus has come back, I look for car wrecks. I did. I looked to see if Tim LaHaye were there interviewing people about the return. Anyway, it's terrible, but I think God writes it because he knows we'll take our little secondary beliefs or even tertiary or fourth, whatever that one's called.
I don't even know what that word means, tertiary.
Tertiary,
You
I
said
love
that like
to say it.
6 months. What's that? Yeah.
It's third, and I say it with
Tertiary.
specificity.
Okay.
Yes. All right. What can we do as pastors to avoid the battles? I mean, they're there about music. They're still there about smoking and drinking and the old standards about movies, but they're there about all kinds of things.
I don't know if you can necessarily avoid them, but have a prepared response to them that doesn't divide. And like I said earlier, is make sure the people that are offended or are casting prejudgment talk to someone else, bring someone else's voice into this before they bring a judgment on them. So I don't know that you can necessarily avoid all of them, because you always have people coming and going, and you always have people that are asking. And so, but when they do appear, handle them gracefully with wisdom. I guess I wish you could avoid all of them, but you can't always avoid all of them.
Yeah.
I think you try to get people back down to the root of the issue. So at the root of liberty is evangelism, right? It's the ability to cross cultural lines and the liberty to do that. So I would say to those, there's kind of hyper libertarians who practice liberties with a chip on their shoulder because they were taught not to.
Sure.
And I think that's a waste of liberty. And then there's legalists who have a pre-described way that you're supposed to follow Jesus. And if you can push through all of that external behavior and get into, do we love Christ? Do we love people? How can we reach them? And so some you reach by restraining your liberties. Some you reach by exercising your liberties. The point is the gospel. And everything else, the scripture would say, practice it in private, basically. Just don't be a loudmouth about it. But when we come together as a church, we're not going to fight about this, that, and the other thing. We're going to say, how do we reach people and proclaim the gospel? And what's it going to take for us to do that? And what I find often happens in the conversation with liberty, we talk about exercising them. We don't talk about restraining them. We don't talk about not being a stumbling block.
It works both ways, yeah.
And it works both ways.
Yeah, and it's humility in your liberties, and you have to be careful that you're not flaunting your liberties. And some people, like Jeff said at first, the libertarian view is, well, I'm allowed to do this, so I'm going to do it. Don't tell me otherwise. Well, at the expense of a relationship, is it really worth it if the person doesn't come to know Christ? So it comes back to what you said, the gospel.
I'll be frank with you. I don't want to be the pastor that drinks beer. I don't want that to be my identity because I practiced a liberty. It's an expense of credibility and leadership, and we should be known as the pastor who proclaims Christ
Exactly.
in all things.
I would take the same stand there with you, Jeff, and that's I want to be known for other things, and not just because of my ability to be free or have the permission to or whatever.
Maybe this isn't big enough to close on, but tell me what you both think about my feeling that one of the jobs of the pastor is to decide what the church fights about. And on areas of liberty, there are times we just have to say, we don't fight about that here.
Just yesterday, someone connected with me. I was instant messaging them, and they were asking something, and I said these words. I choose not to get in that argument.
Yeah.
I just said, it's not worth it. I'm spending my tracks. There's too many people are going to hell. I need to invest in that right now. I'm not going to waste my time when my neighbor's going to hell. I choose not to get in that argument.
I agree strongly with that and what you said, and I'm going to set the agenda of the church mostly through the pulpit and then reinforce it in the lobby. And so I'm not going to preach against ever using alcohol or for politics or this and that. I'm going to preach for Christ, and that's going to penetrate wherever it needs to penetrate.
And by the way, now that you mention that without resolving this, liberty does include that you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat or an independent.
Right.
We hope this area goes well for you. We know it's tough. It is for all of us, even in our own personal lives, because we all can tell a great thinker because he agrees with us. But we've got to guard the area, follow the Scripture. We hope at least thinking about it here and our papers will help a little bit. You're with Pastorpedia. We're all with Christ and his scriptures, trying to apply them to life in a good way. And we're with you, pastors. We're delighted to be with you. I'm Newt Larson, Jim Brown, Jeff Bogue. Thank you very, very much.